Greetings, beloved listeners, and welcome to our enchanted story time. As the clock ticks towards dreamland and the night wraps us in its velvet embrace, we're about to set sail on a sea of imagination. Wiggle your fingers and toes one last time, then let them rest. Take a slow, deep breath and feel the calm spreading through your body like ripples on a still pond. Tonight's tale, Goodnight Forest, is the gentle breeze that will carry us to shores of wonder and delight. As the golden sun began to sink behind the tall, majestic trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor, little Oliver sat on a mossy log, his bright green eyes wide with wonder. The forest around him was alive with the sounds of day slowly giving way to night. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, and the gentle babbling of a nearby stream. Oliver had always been fascinated by the forest. He loved the way the sunlight dappled through the leaves, creating patterns on the ground, and how the air smelled of earth and pine. But most of all, he loved the creatures that called this magical place home. "Dad," Oliver said, tugging on his father's sleeve, "do the animals in the forest go to sleep like we do?" His father, a park ranger who had brought Oliver on this special camping trip, smiled down at his son. "Well, Oliver, some do and some don't. The forest has its own special way of saying goodnight. Would you like to learn about it?" Oliver nodded eagerly, scooting closer to his father on the log. "All right then," his father said, wrapping an arm around Oliver's shoulders. "Let's watch the forest say goodnight together." As the last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, painting the forest in warm hues of orange and gold, Oliver's father began to speak in a soft, soothing voice. "You see, Oliver, as day turns to night, the forest begins to whisper its goodnights to all the creatures that live here. It starts with the smallest beings first." Oliver leaned forward, straining his ears to hear the forest's whispers. Down on the forest floor, where the leaves and twigs create a soft carpet, tiny creatures begin to settle down for the night. The ants, who've been busy all day collecting food and building their nests, start to slow down. They retreat into their underground homes, huddling together in their warm, cozy chambers. Oliver's eyes sparkled as he imagined the bustling ant colonies beneath his feet, slowly quieting as night fell. "Next," his father continued, "the forest says goodnight to the butterflies and bees. These colorful insects find safe spots to rest for the night. Butterflies might perch under large leaves or in the crevices of tree bark, their wings folded up like delicate fans. Bees return to their hives, where they'll spend the night huddled together for warmth." As if on cue, a beautiful monarch butterfly fluttered past, its orange and black wings catching the last rays of sunlight before it disappeared into the foliage. "What about the birds, Dad?" Oliver asked, pointing to a nearby tree where a robin was perched. His father smiled. "Ah, the birds. They have their own special bedtime routine. As the sky darkens, many birds return to their nests or find safe branches to roost on. They fluff up their feathers to stay warm and tuck their heads under their wings." Oliver watched as the robin on the nearby branch began to settle in, its movements becoming slower and more deliberate. "Some birds, like owls, are just waking up now," his father added in a hushed tone. "They're nocturnal, which means they're active at night," as if to confirm his words. A soft hoo-hoo echoed through the trees, making Oliver's eyes widen with excitement. "But now," his father continued, his voice low and rhythmic, "as the night grows deeper, the forest says goodnight to the larger animals. The deer, who've spent the day grazing in meadows and drinking from streams, find quiet spots to rest. They might lie down in soft beds of leaves or stand in groups, taking turns to keep watch while others sleep." Oliver yawned, feeling as drowsy as the deer his father described. But he fought to keep his eyes open, not wanting to miss a moment of the forest's bedtime routine. "What about the bears, Dad?" he asked, a mix of curiosity and slight apprehension in his voice. His father gave him a reassuring squeeze. "Bears are fascinating, Oliver. During the warmer months, they're most active during the day and evening. As night falls, they might find a cozy spot to rest, perhaps in a den or under a thick canopy of trees. But they're light sleepers, always alert to their surroundings." Oliver nodded, feeling a new respect for these powerful forest dwellers. "But remember," his father added, "not all forest animals say goodnight when the sun sets. Some are just beginning their day." Oliver's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Really? Who?" "Well, there are the raccoons, for example. These clever creatures with their masked faces and nimble paws become active as darkness falls. They explore the forest floor, looking for food and playing in streams." Oliver giggled, imagining mischievous raccoons sneaking around in the dark. "And then there are the foxes," his father continued, lowering his voice mysteriously. "These beautiful animals with their bushy tails and sharp eyes are most active during the twilight hours and at night. They silently pad through the forest, their keen senses alert for any prey." A shiver of excitement ran down Oliver's spine at the thought of these elusive nocturnal hunters. "Don't forget the bats," his father added with a smile. "As the sun sets, bats wake up and leave their roosts. They swoop through the forest, using echolocation to navigate and catch insects in midair." As Oliver listened to his father's soothing voice, he felt his eyelids growing heavy. The gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze and the soft chirping of crickets created a peaceful lullaby, and the first stars peeking through the canopy above seemed to wink at him knowingly. "The forest has its own special nightlife," his father said softly. "While some creatures rest, others come alive, creating a beautiful balance in the woodland world." Oliver nodded sleepily, his imagination filled with images of prowling foxes, fluttering bats, and curious raccoons. "But what about the trees, Dad?" he asked through a yawn. "Do they sleep too?" His father smiled, clearly impressed by Oliver's thoughtful question. "That's a great question, Oliver. Trees don't sleep in the same way animals do, but they do have a kind of rest period at night. During the day, trees use sunlight to make their food through a process called photosynthesis. At night, when there's no sunlight, they slow down this process and focus on growing instead." Oliver's eyes widened with interest. "So they're still busy at night?" "In a way, yes," his father explained. "Trees are always doing something, even if we can't see it. At night, they might be growing new leaves or roots, or moving nutrients around inside their trunks and branches." "Wow," Oliver whispered, looking up at the towering trees around them with new appreciation. "Trees are amazing." "They certainly are," his father agreed. "And did you know that trees can communicate with each other?" Oliver's jaw dropped. "They can talk?" His father chuckled. "Not exactly talk like we do, but they can send messages to each other through their roots and even through the air. They might warn other trees about insect attacks or drought, or share nutrients with younger trees." Oliver closed his eyes, trying to imagine the secret conversations happening all around him in the forest. In his mind, he could almost hear the whispered messages passing from tree to tree, a hidden language as old as the forest itself. As the night grew deeper, Oliver and his father sat in comfortable silence, listening to the symphony of the forest. The moon had risen now, its soft light filtering through the leaves and creating dappled patterns on the forest floor. Fireflies began to emerge, their tiny lights blinking on and off like earthbound stars. "Dad," Oliver said after a while, his voice thick with sleepiness, "I think I can hear the forest saying goodnight." His father smiled and pulled him close. "What does it sound like, buddy?" Oliver was quiet for a moment, concentrating hard. It sounds like a big, gentle hug, like when you tuck me in at night and read me a story. It's soft and cozy and makes everything feel safe. His father's eyes glistened with emotion. That's beautiful, Oliver. I think you've understood the forest's good night perfectly. As they sat there, embraced by the night and the soothing presence of the woods, Oliver's father began to hum softly. It was a tune that seemed to blend seamlessly with the sounds of the forest, creating a perfect lullaby. Oliver's eyelids grew heavier, and he leaned against his father, feeling safe and content. As he drifted off to sleep, he imagined all the forest creatures settling down for the night. The ants in their underground chambers, the butterflies tucked under leaves, the deer in their leafy beds, and the owls beginning their nightly watch. In his dreams, Oliver soared with the bats through moonlit branches, scampered with foxes across mossy ground, and climbed to the very tops of the tallest trees. He explored hidden glens, filled with glowing mushrooms, and chatted with wise old oaks that shared secrets of the forest. The woods cradled him in its leafy embrace, whispering tales of ancient times and the endless cycle of life. As the night wore on, a gentle mist began to rise from the forest floor, wrapping around the bases of the trees like a soft, gauzy blanket. Dewdrops formed on leaves and grass, each one a tiny mirror reflecting the starry sky above. High in the branches, nocturnal creatures went about their business. A family of opossums emerged from their den, their naked tails curling around branches as they foraged for food. A flying squirrel glided silently from tree to tree, its large eyes gleaming in the moonlight. On the forest floor, Oliver slept peacefully in his father's arms, his dreams filled with the wonders of the woods. His father gazed up at the canopy above, marveling at the forest's ability to inspire such wonder and imagination in his little boy. As the first light of dawn began to tinge the eastern sky, Oliver stirred in his sleep. His father looked down at him, smiling at the peaceful expression on his face. "Oliver," he whispered gently, "it's time to wake up. The forest is saying good morning." Oliver's eyes fluttered open, and he looked around in momentary confusion before remembering where he was. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and then gasped in delight at the sight before him. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, its rays painting the trees in brilliant shades of gold and green. The forest, which had been quiet and still through the night, now seemed to come alive with the new day. Birds began their morning chorus, their songs echoing through the woods. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, as if the trees themselves were stretching after a long night's rest. "Look, Dad," Oliver exclaimed, pointing at a nearby bush where a rabbit had emerged. "The forest's waking up," his father nodded, smiling. "That's right, buddy, just like us. The forest has its own way of greeting the new day." As they watched, the golden light of the rising sun spread through the trees, chasing away the last shadows of night. In the branches above, squirrels began to scamper about, chattering excitedly. On the forest floor, wildflowers slowly opened their petals to greet the morning sun. "Dad," Oliver said, his voice filled with awe, "can we say good morning to the forest?" His father smiled and nodded. "Of course we can. Why don't you go ahead?" Oliver stood up, brushed the leaves from his clothes, and took a deep breath. Then, with all the enthusiasm of a child filled with wonder, he called out, "Good morning, forest. Thank you for letting me see you say goodnight. I hope you had sweet dreams." As if in response, a gentle breeze rustled through the trees, sending a shower of dewdrops sparkling to the ground. Oliver giggled, imagining that the forest was giving him a morning kiss. His father stood up and took his hand. "Come on, Oliver. Let's pack up our camp and head home. We can come back another day to see the forest say goodnight again." As they walked along the trail, Oliver turned back for one last look at the sun-dappled woods. The forest seemed to glow in the morning light, full of life and promise for the new day ahead. Oliver smiled, feeling like he now shared a special secret with the forest, the knowledge of how it said good night and good morning to all its wonderful creatures. From that day on, whenever Oliver visited the woods, he always made sure to wish the forest a good night or a good morning. And as he grew older, he never forgot the magic of that night when he learned about the forest's bedtime routine. It instilled in him a lifelong love and respect for nature and all its inhabitants, a gift as precious and enduring as the forest itself. And so, as we end our tale, we too bid good night to the forest, to its towering trees and hidden glens, to its chattering streams and mossy stones, to its colorful creatures and ancient mysteries. May it shelter us in our dreams and greet us with joy in the morning, forever a source of wonder and inspiration in our lives. Good night, forest, until we meet again.